ache horribly. Yeah, I can hardly stand up when I wake up in the morning. I'm just, yeah, in pain all over. So, and there, that just went live on YouTube.
Doesn't matter. Nobody.
I know it doesn't ache horribly. Yeah, I can hardly stand up when I
There we
wake up in
go.
the
Now
morning.
you.
For me again, but
I
yeah.
got these shoes that are acupressure shoes.
Hmm.
And so they help, like, because I had plantar fasciitis, and it just, what it does is it massages the feet, and I get on the bike and do it and it just opens, those chakras have to
Ooh.
be open. It's our energy centers.
It doesn't irritate you having things on your feet?
On the bike, no, because I'm on the
No,
bike.
the massage things.
No, no, they actually feel good when you're on the bike because you go like this, you're pedaling, and it's like pushing pressure in, and you can feel it going up into your whatever the seeming body that I'm in.
Hmm. You know, I've seen you can get these socks that have on them every like part of
Right. I saw that on Amazon. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
you can, if
Right.
your head
Yeah.
ache, you
Yeah.
press
Yeah.
this or whatever. So, and I do agree, I believe that because, our feet are, they're the basis of our, automation whenever we move around. And so,
I
yeah.
mine are flat. What are yours? You have good feet? Because I never had good feet.
Oh no, I have really high arches and my feet are they hurt all the time. It's like the bones like I don't know. It's really weird. And I get really bad cramps in my feet. I have for years and years. There's it's yeah. So how about yours? Do they hurt your
Well,
feet?
not with this if I do that, but they used to kill me. I couldn't even, like, honestly, over the years that fibro became plantar fasciitis and all this other stuff. Now I don't call it anything because I don't get like flared that much. But it always does. It ebbs and flows like the ego. It's just
Yeah.
all the stuff that I haven't worked through yet. Not
Well,
I. I mean, it's really like, the way I see it, Lynn, I don't really know. I was reading, I was just drawn to read Ramesh Basakar's books, and he's
hmm.
so infinite. We don't do anything here. Like, we don't do anything. And he says we don't come back. And he's from he's from India. He says that's just another story.
Well, I don't, I think the words come back have a really, have no meaning when there is no personal self.
Right.
If there was a personal self, then come back would have a meaning. But there is no personal self. But what we are in, we're like hands in the gloves of
Right.
everything. So, we come back as, a dog or, I don't know, we don't come back as that because it's what we are. We are
Right, we're already that.
simultaneously
So we
everything.
don't know. Right. So you could look at it different ways. We could just go, like, I thought we would just fall away because we're still in heaven anyway. I mean, we're still with the creator. So this, to me, this is a sideshow.
Yeah. Yeah. But, I think, as for me, what has completely shifted me, and, we've talked about this some before, the age of the heart. Um, where what Jesus is telling us through that now is, okay, you've done all the building, you've learned the lessons, you understand what forgiveness is, you understand how you are to be in this world. Now you and I, we are the implement that is being used to shift the consciousness of the sonship. So
Right. Yeah,
we're
I
we're not
mean,
in the we're not
because a lot of
children
people,
learning anymore. We
right,
graduated now. It's time to be adults and not, oh, I don't can't figure this out. I don't know what's going on here.
right.
That's total bullshit. We do know and we can. So, all we're doing is pretending we're small when in reality we are the light of the world. So anyway, that's what I
Well,
think.
that's the truth. Because being the light, we could go anywhere, really.
We are everywhere.
We
We
are everybody.
we
Yeah.
are everywhere at once, simultaneously everywhere at once. We are just not conscious of it. But if we became absolutely conscious of our true being, what we are, we would know that I am that little kid in India. We would know that I am that, dog
Right.
down the street. We would know ourselves. We would experience ourselves as all, as the all. And you know, if I'm only experiencing myself as this small self, it's okay because that's what I'm meant to experience right now. And as I've learned to if learn to accept more, then um then I will be given more. The more I'm willing to accept, the more I will be given. And so
Right.
that's it's just like, I don't know.
No, I
Anyway,
mean, the bottom line is that it doesn't really matter because we already know what we are, and whatever happens, we can just leave it up to the mystery. Because I think the most important part for me, for this mind, is not to know anything, not to know anything.
you don't need to know anything
No.
because first off, everything here is not true. So there's no point in knowing anything about it at all, other than it's just a story. But the other thing is that um, everything here is a temporary thing. So what's the point of learning something temporary that's not going to, it's not here for you forever. Um,
And sometimes I'd just be sitting here and I would say, I'm just looking at my thoughts. That's all these are.
yeah, yeah, this is my thought.
I'm the formless being looking at Sharon, looking at Lynn, looking at my dog right now, who probably wants to eat because
Yeah.
it's almost time and he's ready to be a pest, but that's okay. You want to start.
Uh, all right. So let's
Now,
get our book.
who's going to be tonight? Gloria said that Dove had somebody that was,
Oh yeah, her name is Elizabeth Herrera, and she is a shaman. Really cool lady. Really cool lady. Um, she came in last night and we had a nice conversation. But she's has a book. I'll send you the link. It's a if can you open a PDF file?
oh yeah.
Okay, I'll send you the link to that, her book, and it's A Course in Miracles. Let me see if I do. I still have it up and open. I might have closed it out. Anyway, it's kind of a walk through A Course in Miracles. Oh, here it is. Let's see. I'll put it up and you can see what it is. But she would like if we folks would read it and have if what her thought was, is this consistent with A Course in Miracles? Is everything I've written here consistent with the teachings of the course?
What do you think? Oh,
I haven't read it yet, so
so
I don't know.
it comes with a PDF? Can you
Yeah,
send it?
I'm going to
So
send you the PDF.
I
Yeah.
just told Cliff I can't buy any more books. I became addicted to books, not reading them, just buying them.
Yeah, so I'll send it to you and anybody else who wants it as well, because she wants us to look through it and see and how, because she is a shaman, and so she has been on a shamanic journey, and so she also studies A Course in Miracles, and so for her she's putting the two together. So anyway,
Right.
Elizabeth Herrera is her name. So A Course in Miracles Guide to a Miraculous Life.
Oh, I would love that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
I like reading, but after a while, what I see in me is everything I read is the same, right? Because it's all coming from the same mind. So it's every course book to me seems like this, they're similar now,
yeah,
you know?
they're pointing to this the same thing from all different directions,
Hmm.
which is what this world is. It's not us. It's not a uh, us going out and checking this, and we're here in this one place, and everything is pointing at us. All the experiences are coming to us, and all we're doing is here experiencing it. So
Right.
so anyway, this is Lynn and Sharon, and we're here to read this book, Never Forget to Laugh, Personal Recollections of Bill Thetford, co-scribe of A Course in Miracles, and this by Carol Howe. And Carol was a good friend of Bill's, and he stayed with her quite often whenever he came to Denver. Um, he's spent a lot of time with her, and they were very good friends. So she's written this book, which is wonderful so far and real helpful in understanding the psychology of the scribes of A Course in Miracles and why A Course in Miracles is and looks the way it does, how it's written. So yeah, anyway, good morning, Sharon,
Good
again.
morning, Lynn. I'm just gonna I'm getting Scruffy's little meal together and then I'll be
Okay,
ready.
well
I'm
then I'll just
listening.
read while you're doing that.
Okay.
Okay, so uh, I would just go back one page. So uh, what's his name? I'm just trying to see who it is that wrote this book. Uh, I think it was Bill Scotch who wrote this, or not Bill, what's his name? Judy Sketch's first husband. Uh, anyway, it doesn't.
Bob Scott. Bob
Yeah.
Scott.
Okay. So anyway, so this is the book about Bill Thetford and the Central Intelligence Agency, and so this is a first uh, an account about Bill. So here we go. An independent but socially involved person, Bill had a high sense of mission. He was typically well organized, systematic, self-disciplined, and socially effective, if often aloof. Although he could be intensely individualistic and unconventional, he was rarely revolutionary, preferring to dedicate his practical, pragmatic nature to improving, not dismantling organizations and procedures. He was very conscious of his own needs, which he usually kept under effective control. He was equally perceptive of the needs of others, but was not likely to be dominated by them. As a manager, he was thus concerned but relatively dispassionate, sometimes appearing detached or even unsupportive if others failed to meet his high standards. He was typically ahead of or on top of events and confident of his ability to cope with most situations and able to prepare for those that promised to be challenging. He rarely caught off guard or over his head. And I'm, not to be bragging on here, but this sounds like me. I can very much relate to Bill because I pretty much see myself in this kind of way. Not that I'm well organized or anything like that, but I'm sufficiently organized that everything works. I don't lose things. I don't, if I do lose something, it's so I can find something else. But uh, just really um, knowing what needs to be done when it needs to be done. I just see that it's such a gift because it's not because I'm that um, evolved of a person, honestly, is because and go back here is because, I was traumatized as a child and learned at an early age that uh pre pre uh forewarned is forearmed. If you get yourself ready for whatever may happen, then when it happens, you're not caught off guard. You're absolutely able to take care of it. And as I got more and more and more able to do that, then it became simpler and simpler to see through all the potential distractions and to look for, where was the correct path, the fastest path, the easiest path. And that's why it may be considered that I'm organized, but I'm not really organized at all. I just know how to get from here to there in the most efficient way. So
I
I'm
think
not.
you're organized.
Oh, I know that's what I'm saying. People think that I'm organized, but it's only because I know the path. I mean, the path may be, like really disorganized, but I know how to get from here to there. And I trust that no matter where I am, I'm going to get to where I need to be. So, and
Yeah.
that's another reason I don't freak out when, Pal Talk goes down or, something happens, I just don't because or people don't show up when they're supposed to be here. All the different things that would upset someone who was uh not prepared to go with the flow and move with whatever the situation. So I kind of see Bill like that. He was the kind of person that, I'm the kind of person too, if someone came to me and said, I'm hearing a voice and it's telling me take notes, and I'll say, let me see what I can do to help you out so that we get the message.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, but you have a lot of skills. You really do. You've been blessed that way.
well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying though, that the skills come about because of the need to protect myself and to be to be capable of action when action is required. I mean, that's like, why people study martial arts. They're not studying martial arts so they can go beat people up. They're studying martial arts so that they will be prepared no matter what happens to um, action when they need action. And so anyway, I kind of see that Bill in me. So Carol says, are you done with feeding Scruffy now?
Yeah, I am. I am right
So,
here. And there's Regis and Dove and Lynn and McCallie. Yeah.
oh, good. And I
I hope
invited
I'm
some of
pronouncing her name right. McCallie.
call her Mickey.
Is that what you call her?
Yeah, that's what she would prefer to be called, Mickey.
Oh,
And
Mickey. Okay, that's such a sweet name and so easy for me.
much easier than in Michaela or whatever, and us all mispronouncing it. Other people call her that, and I think it's very cute and uh, makes me think of that Tony Basil song. Uh,
Right. Right.
anyway, here we go. And I did invite some.
Mickey. Okay, Mickey. I love that name. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So do you want to read or you want me to keep reading?
No, I can read.
Okay.
Where'd you stop?
In researching this book,
Okay. In reaching this book,
in researching.
oh, you know what? A dove wants the book that is Shaman Liz. Okay. In researching this book, I spoke with three of Bill's colleagues, then also senior psychologists with the CIA, who indicated that in the early 1950s, they recruited only the brightest and best. Originally graduates from Yale and Harvard, but later from other institutions as well. They said it was a very interesting and exciting time with much innovative work in the assessment area and a great sense of spirit de corps. Feeling part of the inner group, these bright young people entrusted with sensitive, high priority tasks were always very supportive of one another. Friends conversant with the CIA from its earliest days confirmed the collegial culture there and indicated that many who worked together stayed in touch long after leaving their official employment with the agency, continuing to support each other and their interests whenever possible. Apparently, one never really retires from the CIA. One of his new friends at the agency described Bill on his first meeting as very young in appearance. He was 28, bright-eyed, intelligent, very enthusiastic about his interests, fun to be around, friendly and gregarious, but somewhat restless, as if he had not quite found himself. For all his outward charm, Bill was reticent about revealing himself. He did not discuss his private life or how he felt. Despite his youthful enthusiasm, it seemed that Bill was not going to make Washington and the agency a permanent stop. He spent as many weekends as possible in New York attending the theater, his passion even then, and feeling very much at home in the city. Music and theater were already part of his very soul. Friends remembered him wearing his tight-fitting khaki pants and boots, conveying more the essence of the theatrical world than a government job. A lot of, not a lot, but some people say that the course was really for Bill because Bill followed, even the way he passed was just like exactly the way the course was written. I mean, what he said to Carol was, it's my Independence Day, and he just went down, and that was the end of that. So, it's kind of interesting. Like Yes, the book's meant for everybody, but if you focus on, of course, Bill and Helen, they were both intellects, very much so. They very bright. Anyway, one colleague said they often had lunch with a woman, Gertrude, who was also especially interested in the theater. Bill was close to her, although she was 10 years his senior. With this early draw to New York and its culture, he was not finding or establishing roots in Washington, D.C. Despite being dedicated to his work there, Bill preferred the company of women to the military or macho men who were the majority at the CIA. That could have been a little conflicting too, because he had probably, and of course, in those days, because, his sexual preferences were hidden, right? Not that that's important. That was
Well, it kind of might be important because, that if unless you are aware or have been around very many closeted homosexual, it's very, very hard for for them to constantly be hiding themselves, and especially if you're working for the government, where in some places, some gay people have been not only ostracized but put in prison or put in mental hospitals because they were homosexual. So it is no small thing to uh, be gay and to hide it from everyone around you.
Well, I have a friend. I just got off. A friend of mine just turned 70. We went to art school together when we were like 17, 18, and whatever. We're very young. So it's like 50 years. And I was writing to my friend Alan, who is gay, and his mother he never would come out and tell his parents he was gay. So he never really had a relationship. That's how hard it can be.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so that Bill knew how to keep a secret, that's for sure. And the perfect person to be with the CIA because um, you know, you have to keep secrets. Oh my gosh. Okay, well go on. Let's see.
I don't
So
know. I feel like, the world, it's like everything, the world itself is all fear. So you're never going to be right from it. But to actually, the way our story's written, there's something, it believes that we're supposed to be like, heterosexual, whatever that even means. When today, thank God, it's both. They're coming out of the box and they're also in the box, you know.
right, and what I think, is coming more and more clear, because I see a lot of people getting very upset that all these young people are saying, I'm non-binary, I'm
Right.
transgender, I'm this and that, and people are like, this is just a big trend. Well, no, it's not at all. It's the reality of how these uh we are non-binary.
That's right. And it's my son Andrew's in Philly, and next door he has a married couple. They're both women, but I don't know how but they call themselves them. You're not
Uh-huh.
supposed to say anything about, and that's just respect, just to respect people for what their priorities are. Because, if you have the empathy in the world, I'm not saying true empathy, the empathy in the world, then you realize that they've gotten hurt. Nobody needs that. I mean, the
Oh
only thing
no.
we can do is to remain kind and try to see it through the eyes of truth. But also, I think for me anyway, it does open yourself up. This process opens yourself up to accepting everything because
Exactly.
you need to, because it's all just form. It's not real. It's just consciousness playing with consciousness.
And
Bill
it's that
preferred the
acceptance.
company of women to the military. Oh, I read that. Okay, where did I stop?
You were in the middle of that.
Okay, applicants were required to take a polygraph test that should have revealed as much. Bill
Where did you
indicated
read
that
that? Oh, you okay. Uh,
that's where I stopped, I think, right?
okay, I don't know if you read this about
That was
homosexuality.
understandable because by then he had recognized and accepted his homosexuality. I might have not read that, which would seem an impossible situation since homosexuals were not allowed in the CIA. Wow. Wow. He was a homosexual and so he had to hide. Ridiculous. Applicants were required to take a polygraph test that should have revealed as much. In a world like this, that's not real. And when we look at the prejudices, you can just, and this is all our imagination, but just imagine how much pain people get into. Yes, we wanted to be separate, but, these, to me, not to let gay people in the CIA, that's just barbaric.
Oh, they wouldn't let gay people in the army. They wouldn't let gay people in.
They thought it was like a mental illness. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
thought it was a mental illness. And it was actually listed as a mental illness in the documents I think it
Right.
was just taken out not that long ago.
Yeah. Crazy. Anyway, it's just Bill indicated it had to bring conflict within Bill to have to hide it. Yes. Well, making enormous conflict. Just think about when you go back in time, the things that, at least for me, that I was ashamed of. I didn't want to tell people, when I was a child that, I didn't understand what was going on in school. The way the ego is, it sees the people that understand stuff and not the ones that don't understand. And are it to be this human that we seemingly are, it's very, very challenging. And she's right. The amount of pain he had to hide, but thank God for the course, because he certainly did get brought to freedom. Applicants were required to take a polygraph test that should have revealed as much. Bill indicated many years later, however, that his familiarity with biofeedback and various scientific instruments used during his time with Carl Rogers and the completing of his PhD taught him to make the polygraph machine read inconclusive, and he was hired. He made certain his apartment was clear of anything that could give him away. It's so sad. And when it was covertly checked, he had ways to determine if it was no evidence was there to find. David Goodrich described him as a remarkably competent guy, very perceptive, a delightful friend, and a companion with a great sense of humor, a trait everyone in life admired and found noteworthy. More than 30 years later, they met again, this former colleague having discovered Bill's involvement with ACIM and now a student of it himself. Wow. He had wondered if he would see Bill differently as an ascended master of some kind, but he did not. However, he found the same characteristics Bill had displayed in the 1950s, being very present, very casual, easy to relate, and intensely sincere, were still in place. In 2007, I met with Goodrich, and again, we discussed their last
Oops.
meeting about a year before Bill's passing. He pondered over why he had still seen him as a wonderful person, but was struck forcibly, like so many others, by the power of his quiet presence. The course speaks to this issue, stating that we bring all past associations with us when we observe anything. Now look at that. And that's the truth. That's all we're doing when we're talking. Because we can't know, like, would we know what a glass was if it weren't for the past? We wouldn't know anything. And, what I think we need to challenge is that this is just a bunch of shapes we're looking at. Without the interpreter, we would just be looking at shapes and we wouldn't even know what that was. It's kind of interesting when this is why I think the course is brilliant, because of the way it sets up the interpretation in the workbook.
Yeah.
In this man's case, he was seeing Bill again, but not with a clean lens, so to speak, inadvertently bringing his old perceptions of him, positive though they were, to the encounter. ACM exhorts us to practice viewing everything with new eyes, allowing ourselves to see without the usual interpretations, judgments, biases, and ever-present question. How can I use this for my benefit? It promises a sense of well-being and peace when we view anything without our past laid on it, without the obstacle of accumulated thought. People who met Bill for the first time in his later years with no expectations were the ones who found the experience extraordinary and comforting. Although the CIA's promise of discovering exciting new psychological process was certainly alluring and served the purpose of relocating him to Washington, D.C., the Washington School of Psychiatry, founded by Dr. Harry Stack Sullivan, was the major draw and the real reason Bill agreed to take the CIA position. He couldn't know in the beginning how important his association with John Gittinger and the POTS would turn out to be long-term. But he did know he was fascinated by Sullivan's philosophy with his focus on interpersonal relations. This pattern of emphasis on relationships anticipates the central role they will play in A Course in Miracles. Sullivan was also intrigued by personality development in children, another interest Bill shared with him. Incidentally, more than half the professional papers Bill published before he moved to Washington focused on children. Over to you, Lynn.
All right. Yeah. So we're seeing a lot about this man who, coincidentally, I always just thought, well, he was a nice guy who, could type really well and supported Helen. But, we're seeing a lot more about him as a person, um, and personality and how he came to be this person who could be trusted with A Course in Miracles. So beautiful. So Carol continues. Once again, that inevitable pull towards self-discovery, yearning for an undefined something just out of reach was at work. At the WSP, he was able to study with some of the brightest lights in psychology and psychiatry at the time, usually in the evening, so not to interfere with his work at the CIA, taking every class offered. The philosophy of the school was consistent with the work he had done earlier with Carl Rogers and was very helpful with his work at the agency. We can also imagine he felt at home at the WSP and was likely surrounded by fellow seekers, at that time mostly MDs, but some PhDs like Bill. According to the NF profile, and this is again, I think the Myers-Briggs thing, I'm not sure. Anyway, one of those profiling things. Idealists heavily populate the social sciences, particularly the fields of mental healing and personal or religious counseling, professions directed toward human metamorphosis, or the unfolding of the mind and heart toward greater self-understanding and spiritual peace. NFs find great satisfaction in the mental health services, where they tend to take the most humanistic of approaches, those advocating growth models of counseling and psychotherapy rather than the more confronting or controlling models. And I tend to agree, it's probably the best thing. Uh, And Mickey is saying it had to bring conflict with Bill, tied to the homosexuality. And she says, then Bill really needed the course to know that he is loved unconditionally. And this is why, Bruce and I are reading Absence from Felicity on Saturdays. And, you hear, Jesus telling Helen, tell Bill this, let Bill know, I want Bill to know that I love him, that he is loved. And you're wondering um, is she so needing to tell Bill that he's loved? Well, here's why. You put these two books together and you see this dynamic between these two people and Jesus, who is there to hold both of their hands through this labor and delivery of this unruly child called A Course in Miracles. Uh, so, so no wonder he took every class from the profile given above. We can infer that the place was swarming with fellow NFs, like moths drawn to the same flame. His WSP experience made a lasting impression on Bill, for he spoke of it often, as if it were an honor to have been there. David Goodrich first met Bill when both were enrolled in a postdoctoral certification program at the Washington School of Psychiatry. He remembered, Okay, so this is from David Goodrich. Bill and I were in a class on psychological testing, and I thought I was pretty good, but by golly, I had this one case and it was something. It was terrific. And Bill just ran circles not only around me, but everybody else. It was amazing that what he could come up with. Subsequently, I learned that he did this on the basis of his work with John Gittinger, who later funded his research up in New York. He had developed an approach to personality assessment that was quite unique. The only problem was that it certainly didn't work all the time, or even necessarily most of the time. But excuse me, but when it did, it was fantastic. This was one of those things when it worked. This was one of those things when it worked. Now, in fairness, both to Bill and to John, though esoteric, it is an approach still carried on by its followers and used very extensively by the agency around the world. Excuse me, I have a really dry throat here. I have to take a drink. Here we go. Over the years, it became apparent to many that in addition to his excellent training and education, Bill had a specific innate aptitude for interpreting tests. Psychometrics was his strong suit. Bill did base much of his work on John Gittinger's research, but of course also brought his own intuitive talent to bear. Another passage from Please Understand Me Too illustrates this. Okay, and this is just another backup that she has here. Idealists are naturally inductive in their thought and speech, which is to say that they move quickly from part to whole, from a few particulars to sweeping generalizations, from the smallest sign of something to its entirety, with their focus on unseen potentials, on the not visible and the not yet. Idealists show an extraordinary sensitivity to hints of things, mere suggestions, inklings, intimations, symbols. To be sure, such inductive inferences requiring what is called the intuitive leap can be astonishing to others, especially in cases of mind reading and extrasensory perception. At the very least, idealists are the best suited of all the types to read between the lines, to have a sixth sense about people. And they do indeed follow their hunches, heed their feelings, and insist they just know what people are really up to or what they really mean. Even with complicated issues, NFs need only to hear the first words of an explanation to feel they understand the subject fully, jumping from telling details to larger meanings. So yeah, and boy, I definitely understand how that is. You get this idea, you think, you hear it. It's like you almost hear it. It's like a sublingual kind of thing that, for me, I'll see something and I would, very quickly come to the conclusion of, what this is and how this worked and how it got here. Now, the only thing that's a problem is, you know, you have to really be careful not to be jumping to conclusions about things without, clearing up first that what you're thinking is happening is really happening. Because even though it is very seldom wrong, it certainly can be misunderstood in the mechanism, the mechanics of how it worked. So, it's uh, I don't know. Do you? I think you probably do kind of do that too. Um,
Yeah, yeah, I do. Yeah, I mean, everything that he's writing about, I can relate to.
yeah,
That's the Briggs stuff, right?
right. Yeah. So, this is what cracks me up now, and I've thought about this quite a bit actually, as as uh, intense as the ego seems to be, and as much as the ego seems to have these clever thoughts and clever responses to things, the fact is that every problem really only has one solution. And so all of the solutions that we come up with in the world, there is a formula. It's the same thing over and over and over. And that's why you can put these personalities into types and take a test and tell which one you are because it's a copycat. It's
Right.
not some original thing. Our personality is not some, oh, look how special I am. Really, it's just a copy of something else that is far inferior over and over and over. Oh my gosh. She's just confirming this here for me is there's nothing new under the sun. And we think we have the most special, bad guys, good guys, whatever. No, it's the same exact thing. Read history and you'll see nothing has changed. Human nature is the same because the ego, it has a very limited playlist and a very limited palette. And sure, you can mix it up in different ways and make it seem like it's complex and interesting. But when it comes right down to it, there are, six categories, or, or four categories of how you can
Right.
be or
Yeah.
whatever. And, I mean, looking at it that way, all of our belief and idea about our specialness has just got to go right out the window.
Yeah, the specialness is just, it's so funny because like, how can, that's just an addiction, I think, the way I see it in my mind. Sharon, the specialness is like anything that we think here is important is special, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it's all about me, all about me, all about me. And of course it is because we are the center of our universe. I'm the one
Yeah.
who's projecting it out there. So it is all about me, and it's all
Yeah.
show me what I am and what I am not.
Years ago, I wanted to watch Joseph Campbell's thing on the hero's dream. This is before I got to the course, because he would talk about this a lot. I mean, we are the hero in our dream because it's all us. It's like, which is really why I think we all have to laugh, because we're fighting with ourselves all day long and our thoughts. If we fight, I'm in a place now where I don't I don't have as much conflict at all. The conflict is, it just seems to not, it seems to fall away, don't you think?
Oh yeah, it just seems silly when
It
when I
seems
look at it.
ridiculous. Yeah, it seems so ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. So yeah, why worry? Why be sad or brokenhearted about things when in the reality nothing is happening and you can literally see that. Oh my Lord.
It is funny. I mean, it's a process, this part, when you first get to the course, you just laugh. And then there's periods where you don't laugh because you think, oh, what my God, when you get angry at someone else, it's like, what? I can't, I'm allowed to be angry. Well, not really.
Right. And you get frustrated with yourself. How am I going to get over this? And
Right.
this is it really honestly, it's really just a lot of silliness. So
Yeah,
there's
but if you're unconscious, you don't know that.
right. Exactly. Exactly. If you're unconscious, you are unconscious.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And that is the truth.
And there's no use even trying to talk to an unconscious person
No,
and get them to be clear. I mean, but we don't have to because all we have to do is look at our own self, measure our own consciousness. It has nothing to do with another person. When I see somebody I think is screwed up, how I can do is go look in the mirror because that's where the screwed up person is. It's not out there. It can't possibly be. So, it makes it a lot simpler to forgive because
right,
otherwise I'm holding it against myself for being so close-minded.
right, right.
So there we go. Okay, so let's
Where are
see.
you?
A third CIA colleague. Do you want to read?
A third CIA colleague referred to Bill as a very congenial, well-liked, and conscientious in his work. He was trusted with all kinds of secrets. Early evidence of his ability to compartmentalize various areas of his life and play his cards close to the chest. He said that at one point, as Bill was assigned potential employees to evaluate the agency, apparently decided that some interviews, certainly those involving foreign agents, spies, should occur somewhere other than the CIA offices. Thus, Bill conducted some of these at a local hotel and for a while actually lived there on agency's behalf, subletting his own apartment to his friend and colleague because the CIA thought it might appear strange if he were at the hotel consistently in the daytime, but left no trace of sleeping there. It's difficult to convey just how out of the character Bill's later affiliation with ACIM seemed to those who knew him as a dedicated and accomplished psychologist with the agency. One woman saw the article in Psychology Today, September 8, 1980, about the course and Bill's involvement in it, and thought it so strange because it was typical of his interest when she knew him. In fact, before the course became central to his life, Bill and many of his associates thought religion lacked an intellectual responsibility. Although deeply involved with the psychological aspects of his fellow human beings, Bill was not at all interested in organized religion or spirituality. In his youth, his parents followed the Christian Science teachings. But after the death of their first two children and Bill's severe illness, they lost faith in religion and never returned to it. Thus, they never encouraged him in this area. Although, as noted earlier, he did sing at the Chicago Long Congregational Church as a teenager. I would guess this was motivated by his great love of music and an opportunity to sing rather than by any interest in theology. Bill was more traditional by today's standards, but quite on the leading edge of psychology for that time. Goodrich spoke with John Kittinger before his death, expressed to discuss Bill's role with A Course in Miracles. In that conversation, he told John that Bill had mentioned his fear of losing the research grants funded indirectly by Kittinger. If he had learned of his involvement with A Course in Miracles, John replied, "Oh, heavens, no. I wondered what he was doing and would have been skeptical but tolerant. He added that since Bill was doing such great work for him, he would not in any way have withheld support. The intricacies of how Bill received support from Kittinger is beyond the scope of this book. But through him and his counting covert CIA connections, Bill was awarded ongoing substantial grants to continue refining the PAS. Those grants followed him to Columbia University. Both he and Helen Schuckman were conducting past research there, among other projects. When the course entered their lives, that research continued in parallel through the scribing of ACIM, as Bill regarded the PAS system as the most sophisticated personality test available at the time. Of course, research on the accessing personality traits and their consequent behaviors extended far beyond useful to the CIA. It was well within the civilian domain of research psychology and took place at other institutions besides Columbia. For a list of Bill's publications related to that research, please see Appendix 2. It is important to correct and clarify some false and misleading information currently on the internet concerning Bill's years with the CIA. After Bill's death, John Kittinger himself stressed that although Bill Right, where does it say that? Bill's that John Kissinger himself stressed that although Bill worked tirelessly on refining the paths, he was never involved with the operational side of the CIA, including any behavior, manipulation, drug experiments, mind control, or anything that could possibly be considered coloring outside the line of propriety. In fact, persons on the operational side were somewhat scornful of the psychological approach to information gathering and preferred more dramatic exploration and practices. Also, the paymaster in charge of sending grant-related funds to Bill, a personal friend of Whitson, has stated unequivocally that none of Bill's funding ever came through Moktra.
MK Ultra.
Controversial, yeah,
MK
controversial.
Ultra.
Yeah. You know what that is?
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to
It's a
explain it?
it's a psychological system that the CIA set up to like assess and look at spies, government leaders. It was
Right.
all about is espionage and intrigue, but it had to do with psychological manipulation and psychological, just all of that. So Bill was never involved in doing that. What they were trying to do, they were experimenting with people. They were giving people drugs. They were, they did all kinds of stuff, psychological experiments, MK Ultra. And a lot of people, when they hear that Bill worked for the CIA, they will, in fact, you can look probably, Wikipedia probably has something about Bill working for MK Ultra, but he never did. It was
Hmm.
not his thing. So
Right. Bill had seemed restless even as he began his work at the CIA. Perhaps realizing this was only a point along his career path, but not a long-term commitment. He's just fascinating if you think about it. I mean, he did a lot of stuff. In 1953, after gaining experience with the agency and having completed his work at the Washington School of Psychiatry, he felt it was time to move on and gave notice to that effect. One colleague said she believed that although he was fascinated by Gittinger's work, Bill recognized that a great deal of it was based on intuition and seemed somewhat unscientific. She speculated he may have left the agency for other institutions in order to search for a hard scientific basis for the derived assignments. Assessments. As that type of research was not part of his primary job there, testing and evaluating potential intelligence officers. She was at the least party right after receiving his resignation. The agency asked Bill to reconsider his decision, and as part of an inducement package, sent him to the Middle East for several months as a special consultant to the Foreign Service Institute at the American University, Beirut, Lebanon. This assignment was dropped off by several weeks of vacation in Europe and the Middle East. He said in retrospect that his Middle East trip was the most marvelous of his life. After returning, he was generally promised a range of positions with the agency, not necessarily in Washington, and felt some obligation to stay on for a while. He continued with the CIA until the summer of 1954, then was impelled to move. All right, so it's time now. I was going to read till the bottom. So let me just read this couple lines. Since he had been drawn to New York for some years, Bill thought the next obvious step was actually to apply for work there, which he did at the New York Unemployment Service Psychological Placement Bureau. Although he indicated he wanted to live in the city. Okay, and the head of the service said they want you in Hartford. I'm gonna stop here and we'll just catch up next week.
Okay,
Okay. Yeah.
sounds good. Yeah. So,
Okay.
what
Until
fun.
we get into this is all about before the course came into his life. So,
Right. And just fascinating, really, honestly. Um, I'm truly enjoying put my face back up here.
well, yeah, I think it's wonderful that we're doing this because it's just and you're doing on Saturdays absence of Felicity. So that gives it like a whole rounded, I love that.
Yeah, I love it.
And
It's
I'm going to
amazing.
listen